All right, and good morning and welcome. It is July 2019, July 22nd, and it is our monthly Effective Virtual Conversations Book Club call. This call is entitled 8 Ways to Create a Wow Virtual Call. And with more and more people stepping into the virtual space, whether it's through webinars, whether it's through group or team coaching, whether it's through its retreats, I think we want to think about how are we creating call experiences that are memorable and impactful. I'm going to be taking a dive into 8 different ways to create a wow virtual call. I'm pulling them, of course, from my 2017 book, Effective Virtual Conversations. And I would say that these are all practical and tactical things you can add in. Whether you are group coaching, leading a teleseminar, leading a webinar, leading a Facebook Live, or any sort of other virtual event. They come from a 2019 article from the Coaching Tools Company. And that is also entitled 8 Ways to Create a Wow Virtual Call. I'd like you to take note of these because part of what we want to do is keep the conversation going. And part of success in the virtual space is moving things along. We also want to remember that expectations get shaped from the beginning. And the beginning often is before we come on the line. So what is your communication saying? What are those touch points you have with people? Is it automated? Is it live? Is there a video introduction that you're sharing in addition to something that is written in email? Keep in mind, expectations get shaped from the beginning. Think about what you might want to communicate before, and that might get included in an FAQ. I talk a lot about an FAQ, frequently asked questions, because in today's virtual environment for high impact, high visibility calls, it's really important that we do it right. Earlier this month, I launched the facilitator training programs for PlanDoTrack and Coaching Business Builder. And in launching these 24-hour training programs, a lot of questions came my way. People have really commented that they loved having the frequently asked questions that they could download that answered some of the more common ones. And in fact, on page 58 of Effective Virtual Conversations, I include some of the questions you'll want to think about including on your website in a download through a frequently asked questions. We all have different expectations, and we want to make sure that we're being as clear as we can, letting people know verbally and in writing and through one-on-one contact what they can expect as they step into the virtual space with us. Now, on a more micro level, on a call level, in terms of creating a wow call, you also want to think very practically and tactically, what are people going to retain? Already I've shared this notion of how do people learn and how are we retaining things? People really remember the start and end of things. That's what the latency and recency effect dictate. So we remember the start, we remember the end, what's in the middle gets very mucky. In fact, there's a book out these days called The Messy Middle, and I'm sure it talks to the fact that really in the middle, where change happens, we just don't retain it in the same way. So a starting point can be to ask at the start, what is it? Before we even step into design, what is it that you want people to leave your call with? And to make it a little bit easier, I've got some icons here. First impressions are key, and first impressions in the virtual space are also really critical. You only have a few seconds to really disrupt what is naturally entitled, as I call it, the death by conference call. And in the death by conference call, we really move into that multitasking, into listening with one ear, perhaps what you're doing right now. So my hope is, even if you've started doing it, you'll take a minute to look to the screen. And I'd like to ask you the question, what are 3 adjectives you want people to leave your call with? I'm going to set a timer for 20 seconds, and I'm going to ask you to pick an icon, and then you can share with us real time or after the time what that represents for you. What are 3 adjectives you want people to leave your call with? All right, 20 seconds, not a lot of time. but it does get you to really think about what are those first impressions. So maybe you chose things like the two talking heads. You want to make sure that people leave with a sense of connection, of sharing their ideas. Maybe you want people to get a sense of the upward flow of things, and that could be this image down here. Or maybe you want people to get the bullseye, to really zoom in to what is most important. Whatever those elements are, those adjectives are, hopefully those are framing out the decisions that you're making as you think about the different ways you want to create a wow call. Notice that a call that creates clarity might have a different pace, a different rhythm, different tools than a call that is focused more on expanding awareness. So, number one, we want to make sure that we're putting our learners front and center. What you see behind on the image of today is actually empathy maps. If anyone is familiar with design thinking, this really gets us thinking about who is our end user. Now, for many, many years, for decades now, as trainers, we've been led by design from the client. Put your learner front and center. And I think in the virtual space, we want to make sure that we are helping people consider the what's in it for me. What is it that I want to get out of the call? What is it that I need to take away to make sure that this is a good investment of my time? So in creating a wow virtual call, you'll want to ask people to maybe share on chat, share verbally, share on the screen. What is it that they want to get out of the call today? That not only gets them to stop and think, but through the art of sharing, you can start seeing what some of the range is in terms of what people want. If it is a group call, you'll also want to take some time to create shared expectations. What is important about the topic for them? If we feel that we're being talked at rather than engaged with and dialogued with, it's unlikely that we are going to really learn to the best of our ability. So 8 ways to create a wow call. Put your learners front and center. Number 2, we want to capture attention quickly. And you can think about the different ways that I've been doing this in today's presentation. There is a significant number here, and that is the 7 to 10 times rule. You'll notice there's no surprise that I've chosen this photo of 7, just to get you to think about the number 7. In an in-person environment, we've said we want to engage people every 7 to 10 minutes. There are multiple ways I've been doing that in the first 10 minutes of this call. So some quick ideas that you might do to capture people's attention. Are you getting them to ask something to chat in their box? I did something a few minutes ago with the first impressions icons. Another way, maybe you are going to start the call off with a photo or a video. I could have done a quick 1-minute video highlighting the 8 different ways to capture attention. And maybe that's something I do as a next iteration of this call. So this call actually started out as an article. Now it's this quick 30-minute webinar. I have a feeling that this is going to be something that I'm doing on a regular basis. So I think my next iteration will be to create just a 1-minute video showing the 8 factors which I can do at the start and or the end of the call so that you really retain it. Finally, another way to capture attention quickly could be to tell a powerful, engaging story related to the topic or the goals to really draw people in. Now, another thing that we've done already is to leverage silence. I gave you 20 seconds, probably not long enough, but it might have felt like a lifetime to some of you, 20 seconds to leverage silence. As Cicero wrote, silence is one of the great arts of conversation. We need time to think, to pause. We rarely have that in today's learning space. So what are you doing to leverage silence? Number 4, a favorite for many of you, which is using breakouts. And breakouts don't just have to happen in the room. Breakouts can happen in the virtual space. So using a platform like Zoom or other, we can have great breakout capability. You might also use breakouts with there's a person in person and one on the computer. We can't really use breakouts solo, but that's where we might use breakouts with individuals doing some reflective practice. Breakouts are memorable because they allow us to bring ourselves into the experience, that we can share our experience with one other person. And it's very different sharing my thoughts with one other person than sharing it with a larger group. So think about how you might use breakouts. And I would say for those interested, there's another effective virtual conversations call from the fall of 2017 called Breakouts That Sizzle. I would simply Google my name, Jennifer Britton, and Breakouts at Sizzle, and you will find that recording. I go into the ins and outs of setting and scheduling breakout calls. 4 different ways that you might use breakouts. Number 1, put people in a room and help them find their common ground. What is similar? Maybe you're also using breakouts to get people to share their interest. So if they're new leaders, maybe you put people who are interested in exploring the topic of influence. They go to room number 2. People who are interested in presentation skills go to room number 1. Another way, totally unrelated to that, is to get people to talk through their next steps, right? Part of the challenge in the virtual space is we hang up the phone, we forget what we were committed to doing. So get people to talk through their next steps. And finally, you might also use breakouts to help people have the space and time to get new insights and perspectives by sharing their focus with each other. Don't underestimate the power of conversation. I can think it, I can write it, but when I speak it, it may come out in a very different way. I may create and generate new learning once I'm now able to converse it. Now, in our work as facilitators, especially in a virtual space, we want to also practice another one. I think we're at number 5 now, and that is to make sure that we have a variety of visual anchor points. Think back to the first 10 or 12 minutes of this call. Yep, we're running now for 12 minutes. Think about the different things that have stood out for you. My guess is it might be a photograph that caught your area. Might have been the visual metaphors or the icons. One that I haven't put in here a lot is video. Video is great in person. Video in a virtual space might lag, but there might be videos that you get people to review before they come on the call. Our brains process visual information much more rapidly than textual information. So if we are sending something, even with this slide, I could have had like the content from the article, but I opted to take that content and put these 3 sound bites: photo, video, visual metaphor. I could have just had nothing. I could have had just graphic sense, or I included a little icon, which is probably what you're going to retain or think about faster. Now, a question mark here, though, is does the icon connect intuitively with what you think it does? Video, yes, I think it does. Photo, yes. Visual metaphor might be a question mark. That's a good one. How do we describe a visual metaphor? Maybe it works for you. Something we can see. So visual metaphors can take multiple shapes, and I think one of the ones that I've enjoyed using or having over the years is, of course, the Conversation Sparker deck. This is a photo deck I created. It includes multiple cards, everything from 22 question cards like what else, what's another way of exploring it, my strengths are, to photographs. And in using them, we might just lay them out on a deck, or you can get a digital license now for the virtual space, having people select the digital icon of what it is. Now, as we work with visual metaphors, we also want to make sure that we are looking at how do we integrate this with our work, and do we have copyright access? As we go throughout a call, we can be trying out all these different things, but ultimately we need to bring it back to who our clients are. So just as I started with idea number 1, what's in it for me? We do want to take the pulse as you go. And that might be asking the question, how's it going? It might also be getting people to share their energy level through an emoji, through a drawing, or on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you with the learning today? You could also use your poll or your chat function to find out what the group wants and what they're also finding useful from the call. To track this, you may want to really be noticing different things. So again, to the point of like taking the pulse as you go, you're going to get a lot of different information. Maybe groups want more on the tools. Maybe they want more conversation. If you're doing calls on a regular basis, you might actually choose one of the tools in the Coaching Business Builder or PlanDoTrack to track what's going on. So this is termed the monthly content tracker. It really was geared to help professionals of all kinds generate content on a regular basis. You might look at the laundry list of the pulse check and say, oh my gosh, someone wants a video on this, someone wants an article on that, someone wants a checklist. Well, that can feel really overwhelming, but if we dedicate time on a regular basis to creating those micro elements, becomes much easier. So maybe during the month of August, I decide that on day one, I'm going to work on the video of the WOW tips. So I know that in day one, I need to draft it out. I need to find images. I need to lay it out, and hopefully I'll record it. Well, as the day goes by, I get everywhere but to record it. So that means that I need to come back to that recording function another day. And I know that perhaps the next 2 or 3 days, I'm just not able to record it because I'm in a busy area, or I don't have the quiet needed to record it. So I'm going to put it down here like a week later. A week later, I know I'm going to be back in that area. I now can take it and I can record it, and then I've got to upload it as well. On day 2, I've got a little bit of time for writing. I can't record, but I can write, or I can create the checklist. Maybe I decide that day 2 is going to be creating the checklist, and days 3 and 4 are going to be writing out those articles. So although this really was intended as a content tracker, part of content tracking is content creation. I wanted to use this as an example. As we build content, it may be in these micro windows. As I always say, I do so much of my work around the margins of my life. I may have an hour here. I might have a weekend there. What are those elements that I need to build out? And it's not just enough to have like items listed down. Let's see if I have one of my notebooks here. I don't, but it can be really useful on a monthly basis to sit down and say, okay, what are the 5 pieces of content I want to create this month? I want to do a virtual call. I want to do a new article. I've said that I'd write a chapter. I need to make sure that I'm building in time on a regular basis to get that content not only created, but tracking it so that I do leave myself enough time. All right, so for those interested, definitely if you have a copy of the Coaching Business Builder or PlanDoTrack, my 2 2018-2019 tracker planners, check these out. Ultimately, we do want to brainstorm and create a plan. And although Post-it notes are good, we probably want to put that on a framing that's more useful. So it can be useful to have it on the wall, it can be useful to have it on the paper. We do want to do it on a regular basis. And as I write in both books, daily steps plus consistent action equals momentum. Now, going back to calls, we have great content, we have great, we've developed it, but we want to make sure that we are creating real-time engagement. So I want to share a couple of examples. We can use annotation, we can use maps, we can use whiteboards or check marks, and I've got some photographs of each. So here's an example of annotations. In Effective Virtual Conversations, I talk about the design model of pebbles, etc. And yes, there is a typo there. I recognize it. Pebbles is not spelled with 2 L's. However, it might be memorable now because I have done that as a mnemonic. I have put less is more and loop or link back to the workplace. Now, in talking about the Pebbles, etc. model for many, many years now, in the virtual space, I found that there's a lot of content here. So what I do want people to do is also think about what are you good at already. And you're going to notice on the screen that I've had people check off the things that they're good at. Those are the green elements. I also want people to recognize what are they not so good at. So in design of learning, what are you not so good at? And for some group members here, it was not as good at tools and resources or embracing the chaos. Really, a lot of interest here on breakouts, a lot of interest on expecting the unexpected. So this gives me some quick information without having to do it verbally in terms of where is the group and where are they at, because it invites them to pick up their pen, get active. All of a sudden, the disruption is no longer there. So that is annotation, and you could also say the check mark or annotation. Let's take a look at two more. We have the map, and again, you can go to an Adobe Stock, you could go to any other place to create a map and just literally get people to map where they're calling in from. Whether it's regional or global, this also creates another sense of connection, of ownership, or even as you're saying, a sense that maybe I'm in a very different place. As you hear as you hear the plane going overhead and you can hear the loon in the distance, that might be very different from another person's experience. And actually, earlier today, I was on a call. I've had several calls today with people who are winding up their day. I'm stepping into midday, but many other people might be stepping into the end of the day. So we do want to get a sense of like, what is energy level like? Is it 6 in the morning or 6 o'clock at night? Using different techniques like this can help us really shape it. A final tip for creating a wow call may be to do some real-time work. Leave time to do it now. We know that once we hang up the phone, we will leave and probably not recall what we're doing. So I'm going to invite you right now for 20 seconds to think about our call today and to also think about one thing you want to put into practice. As I'm talking, open up your calendar, grab your schedule, and with that one thing in mind, I want you to think about when you are going to dedicate some time to doing it now. Please open your calendar, 20 seconds to know what are you going to put into practice as a result of today's call. All right. So it doesn't need to take a lot of time. I think what a lot of professionals today are interested with is that it is fast. And we are moving, most of us, at the speed of light. So share with us what your real-time work is. I'm going to say here that mine was to create the video of the 8 ways. So I'm committed to doing that. I'm hosting a Get It Done afternoon, and I will earmark time this Thursday afternoon to create that 8 ways to a wow virtual call. I will be doing just a quick, probably Lumen 5 video. And that's done. I no longer have to think about it. It's in my calendar. When I see 8 ways, create 8 ways to a wow virtual call, I'll be probably doing 2 things. I'll be asking myself, one, have I posted this over at our YouTube channel? And of course, it's Effective Group Coach. Check out the playlist for Effective Virtual Conversations, which is probably, there's probably more than 24 calls now because I've done these on a monthly basis for the last 2 years. And in looking at my schedule on Thursday, I'm also going to see that I need to and have dedicated time to do this 8 ways call. So lots of different ideas. I could have simply said, what elements do you want to incorporate? That would have been nice, but having the real-time work, having the signal, having the silence for a few minutes makes a difference. There's lots that we can be doing. And I do want to encourage you and invite you to join us over at the Conversation Sparker Zone. This is a great virtual place and community over at conversation-sparker-mn.co, as you can read, where you can join us for conversations around virtual conversations, virtual remote team issues, business development, personal productivity, or virtual and remote entrepreneurial issues. Hope that we can keep the conversation going. I'll be back here next month. Just a reinforcement out of today's call and the 8 wow tips. If you haven't seen the original article, check it out over at coachingtoolscompany.com. I want to leave you simply with the question, what's one thing you want to focus on going forward? Here is the article. This is what it looks like. So you can Google 8 ways for you to create a wow virtual group call. Or you can just click on over to the Coaching Tools Company, who I do guest articles for on a regular basis. Thanks for joining us. Last month, we did a session on marketing. This month on design. And the call in the month of August, we'll be focusing in on something else. The call for August right now is scheduled. Let me just flip forward to our August date. And I believe that that call is going to be happening. Not I believe, I know. It's going to be happening on Tuesday, the 6th. Actually, I may move it back to the Monday, but Monday or Tuesday, and it's going to be 3 skills as a virtual facilitator. I'll be taking us back to the basics on virtual facilitation. If you've enjoyed today's call, just a reminder that I also host a number of programs, Learning Lab and Design Studio, all about program design. We're going to be moving into several exciting modules this fall: social media, team coaching, group coaching. Definitely join us at the Learning Lab and Design Studio. Make sure you're making this visual for yourself and you're mapping it out. And do think about joining us at the Conversation Sparker Zone. I'm Jennifer Britton. Thanks for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of your summer. And if you haven't picked up a copy of Effective Virtual Conversations, you can find that over on Amazon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.